you. Thank you guys so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. As Bob mentioned, thank you for the wonderful intro.
Use the microphone?
Yes. Oh, sorry. Can you hear me okay now?
No, lift it up.
You know what? Maybe I'll use this guy.
Yes, it's on.
All right. Is this better?
Much.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for speaking up. I appreciate it. I'm from California originally. I graduated from Northwestern in 2008. As I like to say, my family bleeds purple. I went to Northwestern undergrad. My sister went to undergrad here. She also went to Northwestern Law School. My younger brother just graduated from Northwestern's MD MBA program. My dad went to Northwestern Med School, and I met my husband here at the Keg, the really shady bar. I'm not proud of it, but it did happen. He played baseball here, and we met when I was a freshman, and hopefully one day our little guy will be coming here too. So we bleed purple, we love Northwestern, and I'm thrilled to finally be back. So thank you so much for having me. So as Bob mentioned, today we're going to be talking all about the intersection of food and technology, and really how this space has changed, and there's been this Epicurian explosion over the last 5 to 10 years. I'm sure everybody's heard the word food blogging before. Sometimes it has positive connotations. A lot of times it has negative connotations between restaurant reviews and Yelp, and we're going to get into all of that. And I just wanted to encourage everyone to also ask questions during the presentation, because I'm a big believer if something pops into your head, ask it right away so that we don't lose, the topic that's at hand. You will not skew my train of thought at all. I'm a multitasker, so I will not get sidetracked. And I'll also leave some time at the end for questions as well. So if anyone has questions just about the general presentation or anything else, I'd be happy to answer them. And I also have cards here. You're welcome to email me any questions. We're going to talk about if you want to start a blog, how many people here have a blog. I just really want you to walk away with some tangible, just some information, but also some practical skills. So if you're looking to get into the blogging space, I'm going to break it down into 60 seconds, the easiest way to get a blog up and running, so you can leave here and really feel like you can be a part of this community as well. But I'm assuming everyone here is a big food enthusiast, or you maybe would be in the chief economist's presentation. So you came to the right place, which is awesome. So we're going to get started. I wanted to tell you a little bit more about myself, just so if you have any questions, any of these companies, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm totally an open book. As Bob mentioned, I graduated from Northwestern in 2008, and directly from undergrad, I went to journalism school for my master's at Columbia in New York City, and I did their broadcast television program. And that's when I really started my interest in food. It was actually, it's a one-year program, and I was in my second month, and I was on my beat in Hunts Point in the South Bronx. And I just decided I really wanted to do something with food. It was a topic that everybody could relate to. You didn't really have to have any degree of kind of knowledge. Everybody likes to cook, everybody likes to eat, or maybe not likes to cook, but enjoys food, enjoys eating, dining out. So I really knew that I wanted to be a food journalist at that point. So that's when I started Just a Taste, which is my food site, and it features over 700 recipes. They all have step-by-step photos and videos, so you can really cook along with the process. Everything is super family-friendly. None of it's kind of processed or packaged, but they're pretty straightforward 30-minute recipes. So if you're looking for inspiration once you leave here, if you need to get dinner on the table tonight, feel free to check that out at justataste.com. And then after journalism grad school, I went to culinary school at the Institute of Culinary Education, also in New York. It's a fantastic program. I'd be happy to speak to anybody looking to possibly go to culinary school, either part-time or full-time, and give you a ton of information about it. And then after that, I worked at foodnetwork.com for a bit, and then Gourmet Magazine. Everyone familiar with Gourmet Magazine, which had the very dramatic shuttering a while back? They launched a live app, so it was called Gourmet Live, and I was the first hire for that and helped launch it and get it up and running. And we had a fantastic 2-year run. And after 2 years, it also closed, but it was a wonderful learning experience. And I'm going to talk about that today, kind of learning from the failures that I've had as well. So I stayed on with Epicurious, which is the sister brand at Condé Nast, very big recipe portal. I know a lot of you are probably familiar with doing recipe development and on-camera hosting and a bunch of other things, editing, writing. I went to the Playboy Mansion and interviewed the chef, which was a very interesting experience. I wrote about Brazilian food trends and how it impacted, their culture there. So I kind of ran the whole gamut when I was at Gourmet and Epicurious. And then along the way, I also wrote Food Blogging for Dummies, which is part of the For Dummies franchise, and that's a great book if you really do want to get your own site up and running. So if anyone has questions about any of this, Just a Taste has now been up and running for over 8 years. I'm kind of one of the first in the food blogging space. Now there's hundreds of thousands of food blogs, which we'll talk about how that's kind of gone from a couple thousand to a couple 100,000 over the last 10 years. So if you have any questions at all, feel free to shoot your hand in the air. I'm happy to answer them. So today we're going to talk about the role that cooking shows, blogs, podcasts, and mobile apps have played in the proliferation of food and food media. So there's been this really big intersection over the last 10 years where technology has essentially catapulted the food industry from something that was maybe considered a hobby, a not so sexy career, to where it is today. Between the reality television shows like Top Chef, Food Network's Chopped, to different, the evolution of the print space with cookbooks, and how really there's this big push with mobile. So everybody that has a smartphone is now using their phone with various apps or applications to do grocery shopping, to log how many miles they've walked or calories they've burned, to use the Weight Watchers app. Basically, food has become intertwined with technology, and today we're going to really look at how that history has taken place over the last 10 years and where the industry is going. So that's a little bit about today. So here's our full menu, and I did not bring any of these, but these are my raspberry cream cheese pinwheel pastries just to wet your palate a little bit. Don't have any samples here, but there's delicious banana bread next door. If nobody had that, I stopped there on the way in. So I've broken today down into 4 sections. We're going to talk about the 4 factors of media growth. So we'll go through television, blogs, podcasts, and then apps, which I just touched upon. Then we're going to look at food media then and now, so really how the industry has changed over the last decade. And then we're going to look at probably my favorite part of the whole presentation, food styling and photography. I have a couple of really cool tricks that I've learned over the years, and I just want to share them with you because people always kind of gasp and say, I never knew that's how that was done. It's just really interesting to kind of see the behind the scenes and really kind of open up a little bit about what goes on in the industry, kind of behind the scenes, behind the camera, what the work goes into for the magazines and everything like that. So I'll show you a couple of examples. Also with photography, because that's a big part of food journalism, obviously, is getting people to react to an image or a video or a GIF or whatever it may be to kind of entice a crowd. And then lastly, I'll leave it open for questions and comments the last 10 to 15 minutes. But again, if anything jumps in your mind before then, feel free to speak up. So here we go. So we're going to start off with food television. Television is without a doubt been the biggest catalyst in terms of the Epicurian explosion that's taken place in the past 10 years with TV programming. Does anybody have an idea of when the Food Network actually launched? What year? Any guesses? Oh, it's a hello. I will see myself out the door and talk to you all later. At least you're reading the board. That's exciting. Awesome. All right, so 1993. Very exciting. So when you think about it, I mean, it's not that long ago that Food Network really became part of mainstream media. So, nowadays it's been incredibly more prolific in everybody's homes, but really it started out as a small network, just like every other network has started out. And it's only because of the tremendous interest of the public that Food Network has really become the mainstream go-to channel for food enthusiasts who are looking to get culinary knowledge from the comfort of their couch and the comfort of their kitchen. People who watch Food Network want to become better cooks. They fall in love with the on-air talent, the brands that have become established, the Bobby Flays, the Mario Vitalis, everybody there who's kind of really created a persona. And you have this really rich celebrity culture now where people have, book deals and endorsements, and it's really become a part of mainstream media. So Food Network was really the kind of channel that launched it all in 1993. And a couple of years ago, they launched a sister channel, Cooking Channel. Is anyone familiar with Cooking Channel? So that's kind of like maybe skews a little bit younger in terms of the demo, a little bit more kind of casual in terms of the tone, less kind of less kind of stand and stir, they call it, in terms of the cooking shows, a little bit more reality based. So Cooking Channel is kind of the younger sister to Food Network. So it was first on the scene in 1993, and to this day, Food Network actually appears in 99 million homes across the United States. So it went from a small network that launched out of pure interest in cooking and food to now being in 99 million homes across the U.S. And now cooking shows have kind of gone beyond cable television. everybody is fighting for the attention of the mobile device. So everybody here that has a smartphone, you know, chances are you're watching a lot of content on your mobile device. And so now Food Network is kind of trying to capture that same audience by streaming videos on their apps, by streaming videos on their website. And we're going to talk a lot about that today. But YouTube has very much become the new Food Network. So YouTube launched and it basically took over a lot of the online audience, the millennial generation and beyond, taking those eyes kind of away from cable television, because nowadays nobody can really watch television and just be watching television. They're watching television and they're on their phone, or they're watching television and they're on their laptop. It's kind of this dual role between the two forms of media that have really launched YouTube into this space and made it such a big player in the food media space. There's actually 4 billion videos viewed a day on YouTube. So if you compare that to Food Network being in 99 million homes, 4 billion views a day of video on YouTube, and 6 billion hours of video a month are watched. So 6 billion hours. Bless you. The grand scale of the audience that lives on YouTube is just massive. It cannot even compete compared to being in cable televisions. And the great thing about YouTube also is it's on the go, it's mobile, and that's become the big driving force nowadays, is how do you capture the attention of somebody who's walking across the street or sitting on the subway or riding the bus or, you know, waiting to pick up their kids at school, whatever it may be. They have this device in their hand. So how are you capturing their attention? So mobile has played a huge role in the fact that YouTube has really taken over and become such a big presence in the food media space. And the top 20 culinary channels on YouTube garnered 370 million views worldwide in the year 2013 alone, and that was up 280% from the previous year. So you can just see year over year, food is not a category on YouTube that's going away. It's not a category that's dwindling by any means. It's actually the exact opposite. It is the second fastest growing on YouTube. Just the number of people who are picking up a camera casually in their kitchens and showing people how to make a grandmother's babka recipe or cook Christmas cookies or whatever it may be. Everybody feels this ability and desire to really get online, share their point of view through YouTube, through the channels that they're creating. And two of the biggest ones that I want to talk about, I'm not sure if anyone's familiar with Tastemade or EpicMealTime. Has anyone ever heard of either of these channels? Tastemade has kind of become, they're based out of Santa Monica, California, just a short drive from my home. They have really exploded onto the scene when it comes to YouTube, and they actually launched as a YouTube-only platform at first. So while they have a website, tastemade.com, it's really their YouTube channel that is what kind of brought to light all of these different culinary stars and really made them the go-to place for people who were interested in learning how to cook and kind of wanting to relate to somebody online versus watching a television. So Tastemade is one, if you're not familiar, I would definitely recommend checking out. They have a ton of different programming options, everything from cocktails to vegan chefs to gluten-free baking shows. They have literally everything across the board. So that's a really big popular one. And then EpicMealTime is also huge. They have a massive presence on YouTube. They had 774 million views on YouTube, and Tastemade is just under that at 60, or I'm sorry, way under that at 68 million. But EpicMealTime is the volume has decreased. Okay. Let's see. This just died, I think. Yeah, there's technology. So that we don't lose time, if I talk this loud, can you hear me? Is that okay? Okay, just so we'll just keep going. So that's kind of how television has really impacted the food media space over the last couple of years, starting in 1993 with Food Network, all the way up until Tastemade's success of the current day. So that's kind of where it runs the spectrum, from going from strictly cable television to where it is now, which is a predominantly online platform. So that's kind of where food TV is at. And then next up we have blogs. So this is definitely kind of my favorite of the bunch because this is how I got my start in food media as well. And if everyone's familiar with what a blog is, it's basically just, think of blog as the same word as website. So it's just a site that anybody can start. It's super simple. I'm actually going to show you guys a 60-second setup for if you want to start your own blog. But blogs really kind of hit the scene hard in 1997. So you think you had Food Network launch in 93. 4 years later was when food blogs really seen and have really grown and kind of snowballed into the impact that they have today. So they are absolutely massive. There are hundreds of thousands of food blogs. It's actually really hard to measure how many there are because a lot of people start food blogs and then don't update them, so they become dormant. But at the same time, you have people who are updating them regularly. And a lot of major brands now have a blog component as well. For example, the New York Times, if you read New York Times Food started a blog as well a couple of years ago, and that's where they kind of post their daily updates, additional recipes, restaurant features. It's just kind of more of a conversational tone when you think of blogs versus when you think of kind of mainstream media online or print editions or magazines. So that's how you can kind of reference blogs. And the reason blogs have been so successful and have grown so much over the last decade or so is really the advancement of information that they give. They have made it possible so that anybody with an internet connection can launch a blog. So if you wanted to launch a blog, if you wanted to launch one, literally anybody that had an internet connection, because of a certain platform called WordPress. Is everyone here familiar with WordPress? Have you ever heard of it? Okay, we're going to talk through it because this is an unbelievable platform that has completely changed the entire blogging space. And it's literally a question of three small steps to set up a blog. And thank you so much. Can you hear me now? Is this okay? Wonderful. Thank you so much, Laura. I appreciate it. So WordPress really came onto the scene and made it possible so that anybody with an idea, with a passion, with an interest in food or any other subject for that matter, could get their ideas out into the world, could make them publicly known, and they made this huge advancement of information available online. So anybody with an interest in food could put their ideas online and get other people to read them. And this is how I started my blog in 2008, 8 years ago, was through WordPress. I'm still on WordPress now. It's a fantastic platform, and it really allows you to kind of grow with it. Some of the biggest blogs online are run through WordPress. And all WordPress is, think of it as just like a platform where it gives you a template where you plug in the title of the post, the subject of the post, and then you just type away and you hit publish. And it's literally that simple. So because of the simplicity of WordPress, it made it possible for so many more people to get online, to launch their blogs, and to really kind of make this transformation from print newspapers to the digital era that we're in nowadays. So I would definitely jot down WordPress if you're at all interested in starting your own blog. And then of course there's been the rise and impact of social media, especially through a marketing platform. So Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, Snapchat, Periscope, there's literally a million different social media platforms. But it's only been over the last 5 to 10 years that social media has really taken off and become the reason that so many of these blogs either go viral or get their information shared, because people aren't necessarily sitting on the blogs and commenting. I mean, they are, but to a lesser degree, versus on Facebook, where you have some crazy percentage of the world population on a daily basis logging into Facebook, sharing information, sharing links from the different food blogs that have really become established. And that's how this information has really grown across the globe and made it so that food blogging and food information is readily available to absolutely everyone. So they've really taken the place of newspapers. People still like to pick up a tangible newspaper so that they have something, physical in their hands to hold, just like you love to hold a cookbook, maybe when you're in the kitchen versus cooking on an iPad or through your phone. Blogs have really taken the place of newspapers in that regard because there's also this really quick and easy access to information. And there's also become a blurred line between blogs and big name brands. So I mentioned the New York Times launched their food blog. So that's the New York Times cooking section blog. And then probably the biggest one, which is kind of considered the Bible of kind of the food media space online, is called Eater. Has anyone ever heard of Eater before? It's very much like, do you know TMZ, the gossip site? It's kind of the equivalent, but for food, like less trashy. So it's very much, it's the food kind of section of the whole blogging world. So Eater is a fantastic resource, eater.com. And what I really love about Eater is, it started as a small blog, but it has turned into this massive national resource where there's actually different divisions in all major cities. So you can go to Eater and access what's called the Eater heat map. And it will show the top 34 restaurants in Chicago right now, according to their food editors. So if you ever need a restaurant recommendation, I highly recommend you go to Eater. And it's awesome because they have it plotted on an interactive map, so you can kind of scroll around, see what's near you. And then they have restaurant reviews. They kind of have all the latest and greatest information in the food space. Yes, go ahead.
I understand in newspaper world how they created income from this, how they generated an economic model. You become a blogger, you talk about recipes that you love. What's the point? How are you going to create anything out of that that isn't free to the public?
You are 29 slides ahead, but you are so on it. You are on it. You literally answered my number one question that I always get like 100 times a day is, how do you make money running a website? And we are going to answer that question. I promise we'll leave that as a little cliffhanger, but I have an actual answer to that. It's a fantastic question, and I get it all the time. So we are going to make sure we answer that today. Because people wonder, how do you monetize a site? How do you not put up a paywall and make people pay for information when everyone is so used to getting everything for free? How do you not force them to pay 99 cents, $1.99, whatever amount it may be? And I'm going to share that information. So that means you're going to have to stay here and not go to the economy one just yet. So just to finish up with blogs, WordPress is really the biggest catalyst in this space and is really what made blogging the industry that it is today. It gave people the ability to share their perspective and their passion and their hobby online. Even if it, like myself in 2008, when I launched my site, I launched it because my mom is an unbelievable cook and my grandmother is an unbelievable cook, and people kept emailing me asking for recipes. And instead of emailing them Microsoft Word documents, I thought I'm just going to put them online. This was 2008, I was in grad school, and I'll send them a link. I didn't have any advertising on the site then. I had no idea what I was doing. The site was hideously ugly, but I was like, I will just send them the link to this, my mom's famous baby back ribs recipe. She's from Gary, Indiana, Midwest, love it. And that's really how it all started, is people wanted to share their passions, and WordPress made this possible. So there is one other competitor to WordPress called Blogger, but I'm a huge advocate for WordPress because of the user friendliness of it. So we're gonna talk about that a touch more. So does anybody here have their own blog, just out of curiosity? Okay, so a couple of people do. So are they about food, or are they about other topics?
Everything.
Everything.
Lots of, like my family and food. It's a personal blog.
Perfect. So all about you, and you created it so that you could share with family and friends, kind of what was going on. Exactly. And do you use WordPress for your blog?
I don't. I use Weebly because they have an app and it's really easy.
Super simple.
Yeah.
Definitely. No, I've heard of Weebly. That's great. And you said you have a blog as well?
Mine's on Blogger. It's eclectic. It's music, neighborhood stuff,
Very
little bit
cool.
of photography, a bunch of other issues.
Awesome. That's wonderful. And was it pretty easy for you to get up and running? Have you had it for a while? Super.
I've had it for over 10 years.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. And you're using Blogger, which is fantastic, the kind of equivalent to WordPress.
Yeah, I found it pretty user-friendly.
Exactly. And that's the great thing about WordPress. So anybody here, and actually I just looked up and remembered, if you're sending any sort of social media about today, don't forget to use the hashtag adaywithnu. It's on the top right corner of every slide, just as a reminder, since we're talking social media. But WordPress.com is where you'll want to go if you're going to want to launch a blog. Super simple. It's the preferred platform for creating a blog. It just takes 60 seconds. So let's say you leave here today and you're like, I want to start a barbecue blog. You will have it up and running by the time you leave the door. It literally takes 60 seconds. Super simple. It's a 5-step process to go basically from your idea to a fully functioning blog. And the fantastic thing about WordPress as well is it comes with hundreds of free templates. There is literally zero cost to starting a blog. And that's something else that's really made this access so easy and available to so many people, is there's no financial barrier. You don't have to have a certain amount of money in order to launch a blog. It's free. So if you have an internet connection, you can do it. Go to WordPresscom. It's a 5-step process, super straightforward, and it applies to any type. So you could literally be blogging about any given topic. You mentioned music and neighborhood and culture and arts and everything. So literally across the board, you can pick a template that fits your kind of your theme. Oh, there we go. Sorry, I went back. And so that's definitely the place to go if you guys want to leave here today and start your own blog. So that's definitely one tangible takeaway from today. And then we're going to go on to podcasts. So podcasts are the audio equivalent, basically. Does anybody here listen to podcasts, NPR, anything like that? Probably. Perfect. So much more familiar with them. They're essentially digital audio files available for live listening or downloading online. So podcasts have become incredibly popular, and they're popular for many reasons. But first and foremost, it's again because of the accessibility to it. You may be in your car, or you may be sitting at home, or you may be on the subway. You may not have an internet connection, but you've downloaded it. Podcasts have really become kind of it's the radio essentially now of the digital era. And so what's great about that is there's this increase in on-the-go listening via mobile devices. So you have your podcast downloaded to your smartphone or whatever other device you have, and you can listen to it literally anywhere. You don't need a strong connection. The audience is generally tech-savvy consumers of content, so everyone that raised your hands, you're super tech-savvy, that's awesome. And the really interesting thing about podcasts is there's actually a great statistic that I found that about 50% of new cars will have internet connectivity available in the next couple of years. So cars now are coming with Wi-Fi accessibility, which means you can literally be sitting in your car on your laptop with a very strong internet connection. And it's kind of humorous and ironic in the fact that it's basically just going back to listening to it's the radio in your car. So full circle, we're going full circle with that, which is great. So, I mean, some people see it as great to have a Wi-Fi connection in a car. Other people are like, forget it, I'm trying to get away from the office, the connectivity and all of that. But the one good thing about having that access to the Wi-Fi connection in your car is you can now download podcasts and listen to them directly from your car while you're, again, on the go. That's a big theme today. Everything is happening now on the go. So it's just kind of interesting to me that now cars are going to have, you know, a lot of them do have it. In a couple of years, 50% will have it, that sort of internet connectivity, which is huge. Continuing to advance information and make it possible so that everybody can have access to content online. Yes?
This may also be something you're going to cover later, or maybe it's outside the scope of your presentation, but do you have any information on how the proliferation of food-related information in all the media have had any effects on Americans' habits in terms of preparation, consumption of food, nutrition, things like that?
You are also like 2 slides ahead, and I'm going to get moving here. You guys are great. You are like, you should come up here. This is great. No, I'm going to answer that question that's actually coming up very soon. So we're going to continue through here, but yes, that is a big part of today because it has drastically changed the way people have learned to shop for groceries, make restaurant reservations, learn to track their calories. I mean, we talked a little bit. It has completely changed the way Americans interact, talk about food, think about food, share food. It has impacted the entire whole culture surrounding food. So yes, we're going to cover that for sure. So just to touch upon apps, I just actually, this is a perfect segue from your question. Apps, just think of them as there's been this replacement of everyday activities across all sectors. So this is a perfect segue. Apps are just applications. Just think of them as small, little additional add-ons to the functionality that you already have in your phone. So you could download the Fresh Direct app to do your grocery shopping. You could download the Weight Watchers app, which is one of the most popular apps in the App Store when it comes to food, to track your diet. And the really cool thing about the Weight Watchers app is it actually now comes with a scanner. So you can go up to a packaged product, snap a picture of the barcode, and it will give you all of the nutritional information and serving information. So it has completely revolutionized the way people approach diets, in that now they can be out at a restaurant or at a grocery store and spot, maybe they're deciding between 2 different types of cookies and they're like, I don't know which one has more points. You can now scan the barcode. I mean, the technology is just unbelievable, the amount of information that they harness within these apps. Another one of my favorites, takeout orders through Seamless Web. Does anyone use Seamless Web? That was a big thing when I was in Northwestern College. Super popular. And then lastly, probably my all-time favorite, restaurant reservations. Who here has heard of OpenTable? Yes. Like, I am like a VIP, 200 points. I love OpenTable. It's fantastic. And for those that are not familiar with OpenTable, it's a restaurant reservations app. You can also go to OpenTable.com. I just love using the app because sometimes I'll be out, I'll walk past a restaurant. Again, the mobility. I'll see the restaurant, I'm like, oh my gosh, are they on OpenTable? I'll check if they have any available reservations. And then you log in, you create an account, and you amass points, and then they send you gift cards as soon as you amass a certain number of points. And it's just like free money to use at whatever restaurant you would like. So OpenTable is a fantastic app for your phones, or OpenTable.com if you're using a desktop computer. So these are just 4 examples of the ways apps have really revolutionized the cross-section between food and technology. Each of these apps, again, just 4 small sectors of the food space, have completely changed the way that we interact with food, whether it's going to the grocery store and scanning the barcode of an item, to making a restaurant reservation, to anyone use a Fitbit or anything like that. There's a ton of fitness apps tracking how many steps you're taking, how many calories you're burning, so you can know how many donuts you can eat, all of that sort of stuff. And again, it's all because of this on-the-go accessibility. So yes?
OpenTable may make a reservation, but which is the site you use to get the 2-for-1 deals?
Oh, I know. Well, there's, I don't know exact specifics for that, but there's so many couponing sites for restaurants, and Seamless Web is actually awesome for that too. So Seamless is for takeout orders, but they also have a ton of coupons, and OpenTable also runs offers all the time. Brunch ideas, Mother's Day brunch, whatever it may be, different holidays, that sort of thing. So those are my 2 go-tos for sure. And so basically apps have become the answer to our mobile culture. How is it that you now gain the attention of somebody that's on the go at all times? Yes, they may have Wi-Fi in their cars in a couple of years, but how do you capture the attention of the average person that's constantly on the go? While you're sitting here, I see people on their phones now, either taking notes or maybe you're tweeting or something. You're constantly communicating through that phone, much more so than through a desktop computer, and apps are what have made that kind of interaction and communication possible. So now I want to segue into a different point. I wanted to just talk about a couple of different things that have really caused dramatic shifts in the food and technology space. So starting with critical turning points. This is kind of a cool statistic. In 1978, about 10% of homes used microwave ovens. So there were microwave ovens in 10% of homes in 1978. By 2009, it was almost 90%. So that's an example of a technology that has really disrupted the food and tech space. People have gone from maybe always buying fresh ingredients to suddenly being able to buy frozen meals, the lean cuisines, the everything else, and reheating them in their kitchen in 4 to 7 minutes, whatever it may be. So a microwave is just an example of one technology that has really disrupted, and some people can say for the better, some people can say for the worse, but irregardless, it has disrupted the whole kind of flow of the food technology space and made it so that it's eating and cooking, I guess if you're microwaving it, is easier than ever. So that's just one example that I found really interesting. That's a stat from Michael Pollan, who's an unbelievable food writer and a great name in the space. So moving on from there, I wanted to talk today a little bit more about the community. So the method of communication has really changed. How does community and community development? So you can imagine with so many people being on their phones at all times, there has been this shift from person to person communication. So maybe Bob and I would have exchanged restaurant reservations 10 or 15 years ago just by word of mouth. Now it's going person to device. So it went from person to person to person to device. And the reverse of that, it's also going device to person. So just like you mentioned, where do I go to find the couponing deals? Your device is now giving you all of that information. So you don't need to ask Bob anymore, where do I find that? You can just Google it. And that's really been a change in the community. So now not only do we have each other to ask, but we also have our devices. So that's been a huge shift. And then I've talked about this a bunch today, but mobility. The biggest thing with mobility is just made it easier than ever for brands to access consumers. And one of the best examples of this is food trucks. Does anyone ever eat at food trucks? Right, so they're likely going to say, we'll post our location on Twitter, or they're tweeting out their location at all times. This has made it easier than ever for brands to access consumers. So they can tweet out their location, say we're going to be on the corner of this street at this time, and then consumers know to go there, or they post it on Facebook, or they Periscope live. Periscope is a live video stream now that's kind of catching on, but it's just made it really, really easy for home cooks to discover, conceive, and share their culinary creations, because then they're going to tweet back to the food truck, just had these delicious pork tacos, here's a picture, loved it, hashtag love it, whatever obnoxious hashtag you want to use. So the mobility has really been on the rise with that. But then, yes, go ahead.
A hashtag question.
Of course.
I sort of understand it for Twitter, but like I'm trying to do it for Facebook. Why is it on Facebook?
Okay, yes, hashtags on Facebook were a thing. The question was, how do hashtags on Facebook work? They tried to get them to be a thing about a year ago. Nobody really used them, so nobody really uses them anymore. Just think of hashtags as categories. So anytime you put a hashtag something, it puts that concept into a category. So anybody that's tweeting or Facebook or anything from today with hashtag adaywithnu, all of that information is getting pooled into one area. So if anybody else in this room wants to read about today, they'll just look up that hashtag. On Facebook, they don't really work. It didn't catch on to the degree that they hoped and wanted it to, so people don't really use them. It's very much a Twitter thing, it's a Pinterest thing, but yeah, Twitter was really the start of it all when it came to hashtags. It just did not catch on Facebook like they were kind of hoping. Yeah. All right, so yes, go ahead.
Talking about the food trucks, I work in the Loop, and there are a number of very popular food truck spots in the Loop that have their own Twitter accounts. So they tweet which food trucks are going to be at their spots.
Exactly.
So you can get it not only if you're following specific food trucks, but if you're following, okay, who's going to be at 125 South Clark, and you follow that account.
Exactly.
And you tweet every day who's going to be there.
That's a fantastic comment. I just want to repeat it so everyone in the back could hear. You mentioned that food trucks are not only tweeting about where their location is, but other accounts are tweeting what food trucks are in the area, so that people are, again, spreading information through technology, making it easily accessible to know, okay, this taco truck is going to be here this day, the pizza truck is going to be here that day. There's this advancement of information that really made it possible for people to know exactly that, to your point. Great addition. Just one note about this. I always like to talk about the greatest threats to food media advancement. Everybody's probably familiar with this. Everyone is a critic nowadays, literally everyone. There's this famous sticker that a lot of restaurants kind of post tongue-in-cheek on their front doors that says, "People hate us" on Yelp. So there's been a big controversy with Yelp and people paying for reviews and trying to get positive reviews. It's just interesting to me. If everybody has the ability to publicize their opinion, at what point do you kind of decide who's credible and who's not? If I'm giving you a $10 coupon for something just so you'll go write a review, am I really going to trust that you think that pizza's great? And so there becomes this kind of blurred line as to like, where does the credibility start and end? And that's why, Yelp is both a blessing and a curse in that regard. And then there's been a ton of opportunities that have amassed over the last decade or so. And two of the biggest ones that actually have had success in the billions are Yelp, which we just mentioned, and then OpenTable, which we also talked about today. And just in terms of valuations, I just wanted to give two quick numbers. Yelp is worth $3.5 billion at its last valuation. As of when I researched this. And OpenTable in 2014 was valued at $2.6 billion, billion with a B. And it was bought by Priceline in 2014. So you can really see these were small apps. They literally started as apps as a way for either people to complain or to provide information or to make restaurant reservations, and now they're valued in the billions. So these are massive success stories. Some of YouTube's biggest culinary stars rake in anywhere from $60,000 to $120,000 a month in advertising revenue. That's a month, $60,000 a month, just because they have such huge followings on YouTube, hundreds of millions of views, millions of followers. Advertisers want to be in front of those audiences, so they're paying big bucks for it. $60,000 to $120,000 a month in advertising revenue for a single channel alone. That's just kind of some of the success stories that have existed. And then lastly, Martha Stewart, everybody may be familiar with the buyout that she had. She was bought in 2015 for $353 million. This was slightly controversial in that it was a much lower valuation than what people originally thought. The maven of everyday lifestyle and living. You know, she had her whole background in history, and the company was sold for $353 million in 2015. So those are just a couple of the success stories. And now I want to make sure we get to the fun part here before any other questions. If you go to Just a Taste, you'll see photography is a huge part of it. When I worked at Food Network, went to culinary school, we learned all about food styling. So all of those beautiful images that you see online and in magazines and on television shows, there's really kind of a technique to it all. So there's two approaches when it comes to food styling. The first one is called the natural approach. And if you're cooking at home, you are most definitely using the natural approach. This is a picture of my food styling kit that I use every time I shoot a recipe. There are tweezers that are 10 inches long and an eyedropper. There's olive oil and salt and skewers and a paintbrush. I can't tell you the number of times I've painted bacon fat on top of different things just to make it look nice and shiny and luscious and delicious. So with the natural approach, food remains edible, food remains authentic to its actual appearance, and lastly, food may not appear as appetizing, and that's because you aren't using all of these crazy tricks, which I'm going to get into in 1 second, that make it inedible but also make it last. It will make ice cream last for 10 hours on a set with incredibly hot lights on top of it. And I see people's eyes brightening up, so I always know this is like a great topic to cover. Not necessarily technology, but it's just super fascinating. I like to kind of divulge some of this stuff because you have no idea what's going on behind the scenes. Everything may look one way, but you don't know how they got it to look like that. So I just wanted to show two examples. These are Greek yogurt pancakes, and self-promotion, both of these recipes are on Just a Taste. These are Greek yogurt pancakes from my friend Andy's cookbook. One trick I did use for this that is a natural approach, you guys can see the syrup here. You may not know this, but you freeze syrup for about 10 minutes, put it in the freezer for 10 minutes. It will drip so slowly you can get 15 to 20 shots, versus if it's not frozen, it'll go off the pancakes immediately. So that's just one little trick I've picked up along the years. And then that's a 30-minute Mongolian beef. If you like P.F. Chang's Mongolian beef, this one's way better and way better for you. And just to get the meat to really glisten like that, I just actually made a second preparation of the sauce, used my trusty paintbrush, and then just brushed it on the pieces of meat there. So I just wanted you to get a sense of this is some of the natural techniques, whether it's freezing the syrup or making a second preparation of a sauce. Those are two very popular things to do when it comes to natural food styling. And now for the very interesting one. Does anyone have any idea what is making the condensation on those grapes? Close. Glycerin, yes. Glycerin, you can get it at CVS for 99 cents. I put it in a spray bottle and I literally sprayed those grapes. Those drops will not move in a tornado. You can literally shoot a fan at those grapes and not a drop will move. So that's just a really cool trick I like to tell people. If you ever see beer commercials or condensation on bottles, it's glycerin, I promise, most of the time, unless it's like a frosted glass. But I mean, looking at that, you would think it's water. It's not going to move. It's like a jelly-like consistency. Glycerin, CVS has it. So the crazy thing about the artificial approach is food is often inedible. Nobody wants to eat those. You don't want to go near them. Food may not remain authentic to its actual appearance, and then food can appear more appetizing. So those grapes look so juicy and delicious and freshly washed, but really they were just freshly washed with glycerin, so like don't want to eat them. But that's just a cool trick I like to tell people. And then this is another example too. So this is kind of semi-artificial styling. All of the styling on Just a Taste is natural because my husband and I eat every single thing that I make. But one cool thing about this is actually the beer trick. So you can see the beer in the background here has a nice little bit of the white foam, the head on top of it. You actually can achieve that by dropping a little bit of salt into a beer. It causes it to fizz and it will make that kind of lip stay on the drink for 5 to 10 minutes. And that gives you, the photographer, time to snap away and really make sure, rather than have a flat glass, people can understand, okay, that's a carbonated beverage. So that's just a little trick, a little bit of sprinkle of salt in beer. With the roast chicken over there, that's a simple roast chicken with garlic and lemon. Recipes are also on Just a Taste. For that, I just used a little bit of extra olive oil. I just roasted a little bit of garlic, brushed that on top at the end. So it may not come with the actual recipe, but again, that still stays edible. The beer you do not want to drink, but everything else you can eat. And then lastly, so this is the super artificial stuff. So these are a couple images I shot for Food Blogging for Dummies. A very popular technique is called a false bottom, which you can see on the right-hand screen there. You may not have made enough spaghetti to really cover the bowl, or more importantly, you want the spaghetti to sit up and not fall. You put a false bottom. So I just put a smaller bowl inside of a larger bowl, and it really props up the food and makes it look like, so that's a full bowl of spaghetti. Can everyone see that okay? So it's just a little trick. Totally edible still. You can also just wad up some foil or different things like that, but that's a trick that I use all the time. And then lastly, this is also an artificial bottom. I just taped a smaller kind of cover inside this bowl, and am I still on there? And the reason I did that is for this next shot. So this shot here on the left, this is actually glue. So in advertising, again, not on Just a Taste, but in advertising, a lot of times milk can read a little bit too translucent, and also obviously the food gets too soggy and sinks. So in order to combat that, you put a false bottom underneath here. So you guys all saw what was underneath there, that little plastic. And then a little bit of Elmer's glue, and then I used my famous 10-inch tweezers and individually placed each oatmeal square. I know, it's a profession. It's kind of crazy, but that's what I do for a living. So I just wanted to show this side-by-side comparison, because what you see is not always what people are eating, and I just like to be super clear about that. This, again, is more of an advertising technique. Everything I shoot is being consumed. So I just wanted to share just two final things about photography. Any budding food photographers here, or when you're out, you like taking pictures of your food? Yes, all the time. I know, it's amazing. 3 camera types: DSLR, point and shoot, which is just the regular easy one. DSLR is like the big fancy cameras with the big lenses with the zoom all the professional photographers use, but you do not need to have a fancy camera in order to take great food photos. And that's why I use my iPhone for almost everything. And this just shows a regular setup here, where you have your light source, you have your subject, you have your camera, and then I have a 99-cent, what's called a bounce board for any photographers out there. Whether you're using artificial or natural light, you put it opposite of where the light source is coming from, and it reflects that light back onto the food. So suddenly I'm not going to have a shadow on that left side of the salad anymore, because the light is bouncing back and hitting the salad and really lighting it beautifully. So these are just a couple of the tricks if you do want to become a food photographer or take better food photos. And lastly, the rule of thirds: never have your subject directly in the center of a photo. You can divide any photo into 9 quadrants, or I guess a quadrant would be 4, so 9 sections. My Northwestern math. Okay, so you have 9 sections. You never want your subject to be directly in the center. So see how this is slightly to the left, kind of hitting that kind of left side? Never have your subject be in the center. It's just a general rule. It's called rule of thirds. You can also apply this same technique, flipping it for a vertical photo. Again, divide the photo into 9 sections, and then kind of place your photo in kind of one of the outer edges. This is more of like an artistic photographic approach to taking photos. If you like your subject in the center, keep doing what you're doing, but this is more so if you want to kind of be more in the kind of professional photo space. And then lastly, a big takeaway from today, along the lines of don't believe what you see, Snapseed is my absolute favorite app when it comes to editing photos on my phone. It gives you the ability to turn a really bad photo that you may take at a restaurant with poor lighting or anything into a really beautiful photo. So I was in, the other day they came out with these unicorn bagels in California. It's like a very big thing, very viral thing. And so I went and got them, of course, because I have to be wherever like the latest trend is. And so I took this picture, but it was kind of dark at the restaurant, so I just put it into Snapseed. And if you want to access Snapseed, it's for iPhone and Android, I believe. You can just download it as an app. It gives you all these options for how to increase the brightness, sharpen it, saturation, and color. I just want to kind of show a process of this. There's also filters. Do a lot of people here use Instagram? Anyone use Instagram? Yes, so if you're using Instagram, it's a great way to edit photos. And then just some practical lessons from today. If anyone has any questions, anything they'd like to know, I wanted to answer your question about how people monetize sites. I know we have just a couple minutes left. I have really tried to diversify when it comes to income sources, because the number one question I get is, how do you make money running a website? First and foremost, it's through ad revenue. Once you cross a certain traffic threshold, advertisers really want to have those audience eyeballs with their products near them. So you can see an advertisement in the lower right-hand corner there. And I work with a company that basically supplies all ads for my site, and then I get paid based on traffic. So however many page views I get is how much ad revenue I get. So I'm incentivized to get as many page views as possible because my ad revenue will be much higher. So that's the first way. The second way is through sponsored content. Once you have a large enough community, we talked about community earlier, social media following, brands will pay you to endorse their product across social media. That's the second way of doing it. And then third is through any products or sort of brand extensions. And that's honestly a lot of what bigger brands are doing now. They have cookbooks, they have meal planners, they have aprons and knife lines and everything else, basically selling products that are in relation to their brand. And that's another way that people are monetizing sites. But the two biggest ways in the blogging space are advertisements and sponsorships. Yes?
If you want to be cooking with small children, is there a special site that sort of walks you through how to do something like that without them cutting their fingers off with knives and...
Oh my gosh, funny you should mention that. I'm launching Just to Taste Parents in a month and a half. I didn't even pay her. I did not pay her. There are so many sites. My friend Catherine from Weelicious has a wonderful site for small children. Weelicious. I can't spell licious. But yes, and I'm launching Just to Taste Parents in a month. That's going to cover all of that as I enter the new stage. But I just wanted to put my contact information up here as well to encourage all of you to please get in touch. I answer every single email that I get because, again, I truly believe in community, and I think it's so important that if somebody takes the time to email you, I will email you back, I promise. So my email is kelly@justataste.com. Feel free to grab a picture of that. I also have cards up here if you want to just grab a card if you don't want to take a picture. And then I'm on all of them, every social media platform you can imagine. Facebook is Just a Taste blog. We have just over 1.2 million followers on there. It's a really great community for asking questions and posting recipes and photos and videos. And then on Instagram, I'm at Just a Taste. I have been going all over Chicago Instagramming all weekend. And for the alumni account for Northwestern too, Northwestern's on Instagram. And lastly, I'm Twitter at Just a Taste. So thank you guys so much for taking this morning to come here and join me. I really appreciate it. If you have any other questions at all or want to be in touch, feel free to come up after or shoot me an email. And if there are any other questions, I think we just have a minute or so, but otherwise I'm happy to answer them just up here.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yes, thank you. I think there's just one question. Yes.
I really love the part about the photography and how foods are made to look more appealing than
Yes.
they maybe are in person. And I'd always kind of wondered about that because you see these ads for fast food companies like
Oh my God.
McDonald's, where the burger looks like it's been, I don't know if it's a matter of scale, but
Right.
it looks like way out of proportion.
And then people put the picture next to it of what they actually ordered at the restaurant.
Is that a matter of just
It's honestly, it's hours upon hours. One shot like that, 5 or 6 hours. Everything is stacked, propped from behind, brushed, to glisten and made look. So the lettuce is literally the glycerin. I mean, all of that stuff. So it's not always what you see. That's for sure. That's why I like to show people that, because sometimes you're just like, what? No idea. So thank you guys for coming. Thank you so much.
Thank you.